been someone we've spoken with before, back when Utah was still at least a part of the Pac-12, which they are, but eventually, of course, the Big 12. He joins us, contributor to KSL.com, covering the Utes. And Josh, thanks for your time with Craig and David, and also with Paul Catalina. So what was the overall reaction with Bryson Barnes and his performance playing instead of Cam Rising because of his rehabilitation and also comeback?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that the month of August and training camp went with Rising, and how especially the end of the month kind of came about with Rising as a limited participant in practice, I think those of us covering Utah were not surprised, right, that Rising could not go and that Bryson Barnes did start. I think the surprising part was, with a quarterback like Barnes, I think a lot of us thought that they would be a lot more conservative with their play calling. So, of course, right, first play of the season, Barnes dropped back and he dropped a 70-yard touchdown pass into Money Parks. That set the tone in the opener, and Utah kind of cruised from there. I mean, look, Bryson Barnes, he did not put up gaudy numbers, right? I don't have it right in front of me. I think it was like 12 of 16 for 159 and the touchdown pass, but he did what he was asked to do. Take care of the ball, don't make mistakes, make a few throws, right? Not a ton, but third down or second and long, second and manageable. You got to be able to make a throw, and he did. So all of that said, you take Bryson Barnes, the way he played against Florida, you come out of that game optimistic. I think going against this Baylor team, you're still asking him to, again, take care of the ball, don't make mistakes, but you're going to have to get a little bit more out of Bryson Barnes, not to mention a little bit more out of the running game if you're going to get out of Waco with a win on Saturday, I think.
Josh, does it maybe scare Utah a little bit that Baylor is coming off a loss and painted into a bit of a corner?
I wouldn't especially say that. I mean, I thought that Kyle Whittingham, right, the head coach of Utah, I thought he made his point Monday that, week one in college football is often a mirage, right? Teams are not as bad as they seem. Teams are not as good as they seem. The expectation walking in there Saturday is that you're not going to see the same team that lost to Texas State. You're not going to see the same Baylor team, right, whose offensive line got beat up. I don't know if there's, fear or a sense of urgency, but, I do think that they're walking in there with a pretty firm understanding that they're not going to see the same team that lost to Texas State.
Josh, what is the latest? I know that it's still, very much unknown, but on Cam Rising, obviously, and Brant Keithy as well, where is that latest news on their injuries?
Yeah, so the situation with Rising is he was actually completely cleared last Wednesday, which was obviously too late to, get him on board to play a game on Thursday. So where we are with Rising is he is fully cleared. He is going through practice, no limitations, 11 on 11 live, the whole thing. And it's essentially an onboarding process, right? Going through practice, making sure that surgically repaired knee can handle practice, can handle the grind, that he can do everything that he wants to do. Rising will travel with the team to Texas. And I think what you're looking at right now is he'll travel. They will see if he can go Saturday. Okay, they are not ruling out Rising. They will see if he can go, and if he can't, it'll be Bryson Barnes again. I would not rule out Rising. The thing with Keithy right now, Keithy, like Rising, is coming back from a torn ACL, but it's been a much slower process for Keithy, despite suffering his injury 3 months earlier. So, Kyle Whittingham does not generally come out and talk about injuries, but he will often say enough. And if you kind of read between the lines, he will lead you down the path of what's happening. Kyle will not say anything about Brant Keithy right now, which leads me to believe that we're not going to see Keithy on Saturday. I think we're at least another week from seeing Keithy, maybe up to 2 more weeks. But again, he's not officially ruled out for Baylor. It just seems unlikely that he'll go at this point.
So with Rising cleared, they wouldn't bring him in here and, Baylor, as you said, coming off the loss to Texas State, they would not start Barnes, and if Rising is needed. If he's cleared and he's traveling and he's ready to go, then he'll start, correct? I mean, I'm not saying that Whittingham has said that, but Isn't that kind of the thought?
That is my thought process too. If Rising can go, he will be the starter. I don't see a situation where, okay, if Bryson Barnes is your starter and he struggles for a quarter
Right.
and a half, 2 quarters, then you go to Rising. No, I don't see that type of situation happening. If Rising can go, if he is cleared to play Saturday, he would be your starter. I don't see a situation where he would come in relief of Barnes.
Yeah.
No.
That makes all the sense in the world. Just want to clarify that.
Do you think they would, if Rising comes in, are we going to see Cam Rising, like they're going to let him do Cam Rising things, or they even have to kind of save him from himself a little bit just to make sure he really is good to go?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. Look, this is a situation where he is not stepping foot on the field unless he is like fully ready, able to do the things that he does. Now, I know that's kind of cliche, and this is kind of cliche too, right? This Rising situation, this is not up to Kyle Whittingham. This is not up to Andy Ludwig, the offensive coordinator. It's not even up to Rising's parents, okay? This is up to the orthopedic surgeon that he saw in Los Angeles who fixed his knee in consultation with the Utah medical team. So if Rising is not, able to do everything that he needs to do, he's not going to step foot on the field. That much has been made very clear to the media for the last 9 months, guys.
Josh, that obviously is a big storyline, but Utah took care of business in week 1. We've addressed, sort of where Baylor is and how that's probably taken a little bit of sizzle out of this game. But just from a team standpoint, teams getting better from week to week. Where do you look for Utah? I mean, Bryson Barnes did his thing, defense did their thing, but what is something that you, as someone that knows the team better than most, looking for in week number 2?
I already mentioned at the top that I think Barnes needs to do a little bit more, but more so I think the rushing attack needs to do a lot more. Okay, Jaquindon Jackson, who is a Dallas kid, having gone to Duncanville, right, started his career at the University of Texas. He's been painted as like this number 1 running back. Bell cow, right? They can hand the ball to him 20, 22 times, 5 carries for 15 yards in the opener. Came limping off at one point during the second half. He is, I would label him as questionable. And there are certainly some questions in the running back room as, who is healthy, who is capable, what are you going to see? They need to get a running game going because you just, you can't put it all on Bryson Barnes. That's just not the quarterback he is. You can put everything on Rising. You cannot put everything on Bryson Barnes. So you need to have some semblance of a rushing attack, which they did not have against Florida. And let me just, kind of toss this out there. Nate Johnson, okay, who's a, kind of electric, super athletic redshirt freshman quarterback, played a few series against Florida, had a 27-yard touchdown run. Don't be surprised if you see Nate Johnson lining up out of the Wildcat or at running back or, at wide receiver with some jet sweeps. Just, keep that in mind here as I say that the running back room is a bit banged up. Don't be surprised to see Nate Johnson running the ball some more.
Well, if they watched the Texas State tape, and I know they did, and T.J. Finley and one time scored, he was untouched. I'm sure they would probably want to run the Wildcat, at least try that quite a bit.
Yeah, and look, that's what Nate Johnson does. Okay, he was, he was top 3 or top 4 in the state of California in the 100-meter dash as a senior in high school. That's what he does. He is a change of pace athlete, a change of pace quarterback. Can really do it with his legs. A pretty radical departure from what Bryson Barnes is. Okay, Bryson Barnes is a pocket quarterback who can move a little bit, but wants to stay in the pocket. Nate Johnson has no problem tucking it and going.
Josh Newman with us, contributor to KSL.com. Craig brought this up that, again, it's also a future Big 12 matchup. Your thoughts about that, and does this – I'm not saying this gives them a test of what it might be a part of the Big 12, but your thoughts about the fact that they're going to play down the road.
Yeah, I actually wrote that very topic this morning for KSL.com. When this Utah-Baylor home-and-home series was agreed to 8.5 years ago, Utah was this like budding Pac-12 contender who had not broken through to a Pac-12 championship game, let alone win one, as they've done the last 2 years. Baylor was in the middle, towards the end of the Art Briles era, right, when they were winning 10 games annually and going to the New Year's Six. And by the time this game is now played, Saturday's a non-conference game, but the back end of this home and home is going to be a conference game, right? So to answer your question, yes, I do think that from the Utah perspective, I do think that Saturday is going to be somewhat representative of what life will be like in the Big 12, right? You've got, you recruited very well. If you're Kyle Whittingham in Utah, you're big up front, you're veteran up front. This is going to be an interesting test from the standpoint of, look, you're going to be conference mates with Baylor inside of a year. So if you lose this game or you struggle or there's deficiencies, it's a good test because now you know what you have to go out and do to get more on par with these Big 12 teams. I absolutely think that this is representative and pretty important from a Utah standpoint. Excuse me.
What's the vibe around it a month after the decision? Now that that's all come down, because I'm sure there was a large segment of Utah fans that believed, like many Pac-12 fans, that they'd get an immediate deal and everything would move on. And then when it all went down, it happened so fast that I would assume most of it was like, well, I guess this is what we have to do. And they were apoplectic about it across the board. But right now that it's a month out, how do they feel?
It's sort of a non-issue. At this point, obviously, mid-July, late July, into the first week of August, there was a lot of trepidation, a lot of nerves, especially once Colorado left the Pac-12 for the Big 12. Then you had Oregon and Washington, leave for the Big 10. I think, from my standpoint, I don't want to speak for anybody else. It always seemed like Utah had enough going for it that it would land in a positive spot, right? It would not be on the outside looking in like Oregon State, Washington State. So that was, dominating talk and dominating, the message boards and dominating coverage for a while. But now that we're into the season, it's really not a factor. It doesn't get brought up much. Kyle Whittingham has essentially balked at every question, every notion of the impending move. Andy Ludwig balked at a few questions. If there is one thing that people are talking about, Morgan Scalley, right, the defensive coordinator at Utah, he's had a lot of success recruiting Texas, specifically the Houston area, in the last 4, 5, 6 years. So there's a pretty significant recruiting element in play here. And we'll get into that, more down the road as Utah prepares to move to the Big 12. But again, like Saturday's game, that's another opportunity for, kids from the region, kids from the state to watch Utah, see what the future may hold. Because really, Utah, will continue to come into Texas and try to recruit. So why couldn't Saturday be, a major recruiting tool for Utah's efforts?
Josh, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Stay safe, guys.
Josh
Thanks.
Newman, contributor to KSL.com on Utah. They play Baylor. 11 o'clock is the kick on Saturday morning at McLean Stadium.
Yeah, I just think